Hello and welcome to my channel In Search of Wonder. My name is Anne and today I'm going to take you along with me to Greenville, South Carolina. So, first of all, let's see how long this will last before either my phone decides to stop working because it's too hot out here or the bugs eat me alive. But I wanted to take you along with me to Greenville, South Carolina. Now, I know that is everybody's dream travel destination, right? Like everybody's just, got that top of your bucket list as far as travel goes. And you might be wondering, why Greenville? Well, my son was in a basketball camp, a high school basketball camp there. So we decided just to make a little family trip out of it. And we found a lot of fun things to do there. One of my sisters lived there for a while. And so several of my sisters have gone there on multiple trips. I have been there before as well. My husband went to school there. So we have a certain amount of familiarity with the area already. And there is definitely a lot of fun things to do in Greenville. Whether or not it's at the top of your travel list, there's definitely some fun to be had. So I'm going to make chapters on this video so that you can just check out the chapters of what interests you as far as what we did on our trip. You can watch the parts you want to watch and then just forget about the rest. First of all, let's start with the food, which my younger son, that was his favorite part. Whenever I asked him, so what was your favorite part about this trip? He was like, or what is your favorite thing that we did? He's like, oh, the food. And I was like, well, anything in particular? No, just the food. Okay, all right then. So the food. And so first of all, one of our vacation rules when it comes to food is that we don't eat at places we could eat at home. On the road, maybe, like if we're like on the way, we'll stop at Chick-fil-A if that's, the only thing around or whatever. But typically we like to eat at places we don't have at home. And usually that means local places, but it can also mean chains that just aren't in our area. So we don't have Cookout here, we don't have Culver's, and we don't have Jack in the Box. So we ate at all three of those places on our vacation for that reason. But you're not here. Nobody's here for that. So moving on. One place that we really enjoyed was a place that was recommended by Taylor at Tales and Treats with Tay, and that was Upcountry Provisions. And it is in the little town of Travelers Rest, which I'll talk more about that in a minute. But super cute area. And Upcountry Provisions is like a little local spot where they have farm to table foods. They had listed on a little chalkboard there the foods that they had from local farms that day, like milk, sausage, eggs, etc. It was like a cafe style, so they served things like some breakfast dishes, mostly egg-based, and they also had a lot of different kinds of sandwiches. So both my husband and my son got grilled cheese sandwiches, but I got a frittata there, and that was literally the best little frittata I've ever had in my life. It was so good. Like the egg was cooked perfectly. It was a caprese frittata, and so it had like tomatoes and red onion and mozzarella in it, and it was just cooked perfectly and just perfectly seasoned. I enjoyed that thoroughly. And they also had this lovely outdoor seating area that was in a garden. We didn't sit in the actual garden part. They also had like a patio, and they had all of these like fun seating. They had these wooden Adirondack type chairs. It was just a lovely spot to go and have a lunch or a brunch. And another place along those lines was the Swamp Rabbit Cafe and Grocery, which one of my sisters had recommended to me, which has a bakery. They also have a natural food store, like a health food store, where you can go and buy groceries, which a lot of people would do that. Like they would go buy their groceries and then they would go eat at the cafe, and then they would hang out in the beautiful seating areas that they have, which they had a lot of seating there, and it was off the Swamp Rabbit Trail there that is very popular for bikers and walkers. And then there was like a huge playground area for children to play while their parents ate and chatted and hung out and stuff. So I really loved that. I loved everything about that was there. Our only complaint was like we all got different kinds of sandwiches, and the sandwich was very good, and the bread was amazing. However, it was like that type of artisan bread that's kind of crusty on the outside, which I personally find kind of difficult to eat in sandwich form because it's so crusty. It's like a little bit difficult on your teeth, like trying to chomp on that. But it was very, very good. Again, along a similar line, we ate at the Cafe on Trade in Greer, South Carolina, which is like, I guess, a suburb of Greenville, and it is kind of funny. So I loved the downtown of Greer. Again, I'll talk more about that in a minute, but this cafe was like in the back of a building. It was kind of like a mixed-use building. So the front of it was retail with a couple different retail vendors and like little shops. They almost seemed like pop-ups maybe, but they might have been permanent stores as well, selling different types of like Southern clothing and accessories and that kind of stuff. Then in the back was this cafe. It looked like that was the locals' favorite place to eat. There were a lot of, seemed like locals. We saw the fire department, part of the fire department was there. I think some of the police department was there. So it seemed like the local hangout, which I love that kind of thing. Our waitress was so friendly. Our server, she was so friendly. It was just, I just enjoyed the little homey downtown atmosphere, and I got a chicken salad there that was delicious. My son got an omelet and kept raving about how amazing his omelet was. He loved the omelet, but also he has a thing for watermelon. He loves watermelon, anything related to watermelon candy, watermelon, anything. He loves watermelon. So he ordered an omelet, and the server asked him what he wanted for his side, and so he's like, well, I guess I'll get a fruit cup. So she brings him his food, and the fruit cup was watermelon, entirely watermelon. So he thoroughly enjoyed that. So this is a chain, but it's a chain that we don't have in our area, but one that I like to go to if we are somewhere where they have it. And that is the Maple Street Biscuit Company, which has, you know, like a lot of biscuit-based meals and sandwiches, a lot of breakfast foods. My son got chocolate chip waffles, but I got the sticky maple bacon chicken something. I don't know. It's like a biscuit, and then it's like kind of like doused in maple syrup, and then there is a piece of bacon there and a piece of fried chicken. So instead of chicken and waffles, it's chicken and biscuit kind of idea. A little mix of savory and sweet and different kinds of textures, and I very much enjoy that. I think that's what I get there every time that I've gone to a Maple Street Biscuit Company. And also I love their maple tap coffee. It's the best. It's the I love maple. I don't know what it's called. I don't know that it's maple roasted. Like, I think that they soak the beans before they dry them and roast them. They soak them in water that is infused with maple, and so it adds this delicate, like, sweet flavor to the coffee beans, and it's so good. And then we ate at a couple sweet treat sorts of places. One was Clare's Creamery, which was like house-made ice cream, which was so good. We all got the caramel brownie chunk, I think that's what it was called, but I got mine in a waffle cone, which they make the waffle cones right there in front of you, which was so great. I think it's the local Greenville place, if I'm not mistaken. I think they have a couple locations in the Greenville area. And then two other things I want to mention. One is Parlor Doughnuts, which is a chain that began, my brother said, in Texas. I had never been to one before. It's called Parlor Doughnuts, and they have the most amazing donuts. They're all like cronut style donuts, like croissant / donut, and all of these different amazing flavors. My husband got orange creamsicle, and my son got French toast. He didn't love it because it had powdered sugar on the top, and he doesn't love powdered sugar donuts. So that was a little bit of a downside for him, but otherwise he really enjoyed it. And they had so many other flavors. I wouldn't mind going to another one someday. I, however, had the keto donut because I have never been to a donut place that offered a keto donut, and it was delicious. It wasn't anywhere near, like, it wasn't like a croissant type of donut, whatever. It was definitely, this is what you eat because you don't want to gain 100 pounds just by looking at that donut over there, which is why I ate it. But it was thoroughly enjoyable. Loved it. And I think more places should offer keto donuts, please, or low carb donuts. That'd be fantastic. The other sweet treat place we went to was Carmella's, which is near the Reedy River Park, which again, I'll talk about that in a minute. They called themselves a dessert bar. It was very neatly located, and they had like different kinds of gelato and sorbetto, and they also had different coffee drinks, and they had different alcoholic drinks and mocktails that you could get, all of this kind of stuff. But it was very, very family friendly atmosphere, of at least, like, during the day. It was just a fun spot for people to come in out of the heat and just get something cool to drink or to eat. And I think they also had some light lunch fare as well. But we got gelato, and I got the blackberry gelato, and it was so delicious, so creamy and so good. My husband got the salted caramel, which he enjoyed, and my younger son got watermelon sorbetto, and he thought that was very good. Maybe not the best he's ever had. I think his favorite ice cream ever was a watermelon ice cream that he had in Missouri, of all places. But anyways, still very good. So that was the food that we enjoyed while we were there. The coffee that we enjoyed, because you know me and my coffee. Anytime I go on vacation, I'm checking out the coffee places, yo. And these I got on recommendation. Most of these were recommendations from other people. One or two of them I happened upon, but I didn't have any bad coffee when I was there, so it was all good. First of all was Summer Moon Coffee. That I think is a Texas brand as well. And they had these, they have quarter moon, half moon, and full moon, which is like their lattes. And they have, what they mean by that is that they have this like lightly sweetened creamy mixture that they incorporate into the latte. And so I got a quarter moon latte because I didn't want too much sweetness, but I wanted to try this out, and it was good. It was very good. And it wasn't too heavily sweet or too heavy at all, and I got it iced. So that was very good, the Summer Moon Coffee. And then in Traveler's Rest, we went to Bridge City Coffee, and for the life of me, I cannot remember what I got there. I got some kind of iced latte, but I don't remember what. They had won 2024 Coffee Roaster of the Year. I think that their main location is in Greenville, if I'm not mistaken, but anyways, good coffee, enjoyed it. One that stood out to me for sure was Junto Coffee, which is in Greenville, but a little bit off the beaten path, and it's in an industrial area. So it's one of those kinds of places where they've taken an industrial area, like a warehouse district that has, you know, fallen into disrepair and hasn't been used in some time, and then they start to revitalize it. So it was in like one of those types of areas. I loved the look of it inside, and the space was huge. It would be amazing to rent for special events, even for like a wedding, because it just, even with the industrial feel, I could just see a really beautiful wedding or reception happening there. Just a great space. But also the coffee that I had was, they called it a topo party, but it was, and I think that's because of the, there's that brand of carbonated water. I forget if it's Topo Chico or something like that. I think that's what they used in it. But it was, my favorite type of drink in this summer is a sparkling iced Americano, where you, instead of just espresso and iced water, you have espresso and sparkling water. And it's delicious when you add a little flavoring. In fact, this is what I made for myself today. I have sparkling water and espresso and a little bit of lavender syrup, and it's really good. They had orange syrup as the flavoring for their Topo party, and that was so good. My favorite drink the whole time, for sure. And then the Flying Fox, which we went to in Greer, but again, I think it's a local chain. I think there are other locations, at least one other. And what I liked about this one is they were very innovative. Their store was either being built out or renovated, I'm not sure. So the actual storefront you could not go into. So they had just set everything up in the entryway to their shop. It was a little bit ad hoc, but they had most of their drinks, or yeah, I guess maybe about half of their menu that they had available there that you could purchase, and they would make for you in that setup. Sorry, I have ants crawling on me, but at least no biting bugs, so we're good. Anyway, I got they call it the Broken Record, and I got it iced. So that has brown sugar and cinnamon in it, which is, I like that flavor. I like that combination, and it was good. And then Mountain Goat also went to, again, is a local chain, I think, and I got an iced Americano there with some cream in it, and that was great. It was great coffee there. And then my sister had told me that Methodical Coffee was the place to go for beans. Like those were her favorite, like that was her favorite. So I got, I bought some beans there. They had some beans marked down 20% off, and they have the most beautiful packages, by the way, of their beans for sale. And so I got some 20% off. I got some decaf beans there, and when you purchase a bag of beans, they give you a free drip or cold brew. So I got their cold brew with a little cream in it, and that was delicious. I'm not picky about lattes. It's pretty pretty hard to get a bad latte. Now obviously some are better than others, but I didn't have any bad ones at all the whole time we were there. And I also got more sweetened lattes than I usually get, which can kind of mask what's going on with the actual coffee. Lattes are easy, but a drip coffee or a cold brew, like that's where you can tell if it's really good quality coffee or not. So I tend not to go with those unless I'm pretty sure I'm going to enjoy it. So I got their cold brew and it was very good. Whatever roast that they used or blend that they used had a little bit of that like citrusy or fruity kind of flavor to it, which I don't love in my coffee, but it was still good, objectively like a good coffee. So I enjoyed that. All right, and then also, and I'll talk more about this in a minute, the Judson Booksellers bookstore in downtown Greenville has also a coffee shop. And I got something that was worth mentioning. This is a frou-frou drink, what I call a frou-frou drink. They had a lot of options there, but I went with this one, which is one of my favorite combinations, which is, again, what I have here, except there was a latte there. It's called Midnight Garden, and I got it iced again, and it had blackberry and lavender syrup in it, in addition to the espresso. There may have even been like is there like chocolate syrup in there too? There was chocolate syrup. I'm not 100% sure about that, but anyways, so it was really good. A little bit sweeter than my usual drink, but delicious. So that is all of the coffee that I drank in Greenville. So now let's talk about the sites that we saw. So again, most people don't go to Greenville for the sights to see, but there are sights to see if you are in Greenville. And we didn't do there's definitely like some hiking and some overviews and things that you can go to, which I kind of wanted to, but it just didn't work out this time on this particular trip. But I would like to next time we're there, and definitely some outdoor activities and things that you can do there. One of which is the Swamp Rabbit Trail, which would be fun, biking that or walking on it. But we did not do that. But we did do some fun things. So first of all, the main thing, my favorite part of Greenville is the Reedy River Park, which kind of like runs right there through the town. And that park has only been built up in the last 10 to 12 years or so, and has really revitalized the whole downtown area of Greenville. And it's really beautiful. And there are some waterfalls like right in the middle of the park. They've just done a fantastic job of creating a beautiful park you can just walk through. You can even use it to get, like from here to there by walking through this park. But it's also just a wonderful time, a wonderful place just to sit and relax. There are lots of shady spots. There's lots of little areas where people were wading in the water and just sitting back and enjoying nature. I saw one girl was reading a book on a bench. It looked like just absolutely the perfect spot to sit and read a book. Another girl was drawing in a sketchbook, and again, it would be the perfect place to do that if you can sketch, which I cannot. But anyways, just beautiful, beautiful gardens, beautiful flowers. This time of year, absolutely gorgeous. We really enjoyed walking through that. And then there's some different sculptures and other types of art intermixed in there. In addition to the larger waterfalls, there are some smaller like little brooks and little running water areas. I love just to sit and listen to the sound of running water. There was one smaller waterfall where we were walking around and my son was climbing up and everything. Anyway, really beautiful spot. I wish every city had such a beautiful park to walk through in the center, because it was really beautiful. And then the Main Street area not far from there has some great like shops and boutiques and places where you can get some snacks to eat, or coffee, or places to eat, of course. Just a great downtown area. And they add a little fun to it with the mice on Main. So there's these little bronze sculptures of mice. There are 9 of them, and you can find them. We found, I think, 6 of them, so we didn't find all of them, but it was a fun part of our trip every time we went to the Main Street area to look for the mice as we were going through. Nearby towns that I recommend are Greer and Travelers Rest. I don't know about you, but my family, I like to, and my sisters like to, and the rest of my family, like my husband and my sons, they tag along because, they're just used to me doing this. But I love going to small towns, old towns, and just kind of checking out the downtown area and whatever boutiques or shops or coffee shops or whatever bakeries, whatever are there, and just enjoying walking around, seeing the architecture of the old buildings and whatever. I just love that feeling of that old small town America kind of thing. Two that we went to were Greer and Travelers Rest. Greer was one of the easily the most beautiful downtown old town areas I've ever been to. They've done a fantastic job revitalizing it, retaining the charm of an old town, but also it's very very clean and fresh and modern as well. And they have the most amazing park in the downtown area, which is really beautiful for a small town. Has some gorgeous fountains and this tree-lined walkway and beautiful flowers. Just a really beautiful park. So we enjoyed our time in downtown Greer. There's not a lot of like shopping. There are a few restaurants, and that's where we went to the Cafe on Trade. The Trade Street is the street where a lot of the shops are that they have. They have a couple coffee shops, but it is a beautiful downtown, and I was surprised by how much I loved it, and I was like, oh, I could totally live near here. And then Travelers Rest is another lovely little downtown area. That one is really such a peaceful little spot. There are some shops and things along the way. It kind of reminded me of, I forget the name of the town. There's a town in Oahu, Hawaii, on the North Shore, where it's not like a typical downtown area like you think. With the sidewalks and the main street and, the shops, like there's a line of shops here, it's all centrally located on a grid kind of thing. It's more like there's a meandering street, and then off the street, there's these clustered here and there shopping centers or shops or individual standing shops and restaurants or whatever that you can go to. So, and you can safely walk along all of them. It's just not the same as like a central downtown kind of area, if that makes sense. So we enjoyed it. It was beautiful. And again, beautiful little park in the area right there, where there's like a pavilion there, and there were wooden swings where you could sit and relax. And there was a path along it might have been the Swamp Rabbit Trail there again, where you could walk or ride your bike. And all in all, just a very peaceful area. And we really enjoyed, we only spent a couple hours there, but it was a fun time. And then we also went to some museums. My personal favorite was the Sigal Music Museum, which is not very large, and so it only costs like $7 or something to tour it, but I loved it. Now, you have to be probably a certain sort of person to really enjoy it, but I thought it was fantastic. And even my son and my husband enjoyed it. And I think it's not too big, so even if someone is not a huge music enthusiast or whatever, they would still find it enjoyable. So someone, I forget his full name, but his last name was Sigal. He had collected keyboard instruments from Europe from the 17th, 18th, 19th centuries. And so this is his collection on display. And so he had like a harpsichord from Queen Charlotte that Mozart probably played on there. And he had some samples of keyboard instruments that were made in America, or that were made in Italy, or made in France, or Germany, and England. Really cool. There were some that you could play on. So I got to play on a Steinway grand piano, which was so fun. I also got to play on an old harpsichord, which was also a lot of fun. And I really enjoyed that. And then they have a changing exhibit upstairs. This time it was world instruments, which were collected by a professor from, I don't know, Clemson or Furman University, I'm not sure. And he had collected over the course of his career instruments from around the world, both like modern and ancient instruments. So that was really cool. Also, being a music educator, seeing the different world instruments. So that was fun. I highly recommend, if you are a music enthusiast at all and you're in Greenville, definitely check out that museum. We also went to the Greenville Museum of Art, which was in the same complex, but across the parking lot. And that is a small museum, and their collection is focused on mostly local art, but it's not all local art. There are some other artists there. There's not really anything big by major artists there. And it's not a very big museum, but it's free, and it's inside in the cool air. So it's definitely something to put on your list if you were in Greenville. And there is some really beautiful art there to enjoy. And then a little bit further out of the way is the BMW Zentrum Museum and the factory. You can tour the factory, but that was not available the day that we were there, so we didn't do that. We just toured the little museum area where they have all of these BMWs, which, if that's your thing, you will really love that. And then not too far from there is the Ultimate Driving Experience Museum, which I think they always have a different exhibit. It is organized and run, I think, by the BMW Club of America or something like that. And this time they had minis. They had like 65 or something different kinds of minis that you could look at. And my husband and son went to that. What I liked is they had a little garden area called the Founder's Garden that was nice. It had like these little benches or whatever. My plan was to sit there in that garden and read, but the stone benches were so hot. I was like, oh, dang, that's not very comfortable. So instead, I went to this other little area where they have all of these Adirondack chairs seated around, and I sat there. And I just read and relaxed while they were in the museum. That was my enjoyment of it. Those are all the museums we went to. I just also want to mention that my husband and son went to Frankie's Fun Park, which has like go-kart racing and laser tag and I think mini golf and that kind of stuff, and very reasonably priced. I think they paid $7 or $9 or something like that to go on the go-karts, and they had a great time. They had a blast. I did not go to that myself, but that's definitely an option, a family-friendly option if you are in Greenville. And so I wanted to save the best for last. So the bookstores that I went to while I was in Greenville, I went to 5. And I was very pleased with the bookstore scene in Greenville. I had no idea that there were so many fantastic bookstores there. And I'm so glad that I went to the ones that I did. So first of all, As the Page Turns, which is in Traveler's Rest, I loved the whole feel and the atmosphere. It's a used bookstore, and they have tons of fiction. And they had a lot of recent fiction, but it was all used, so cheaper than buying brand new. Also, maybe not as cheap as you might think in a used bookstore. So the prices were maybe a little bit high. Sometimes it would, at any rate, more than I was interested in paying at the moment. If I had been looking for a particular book and they had it there, I probably would have been willing to pay the prices they were charging, because it would have been cheaper than buying new. But I was just browsing, so I wasn't interested in paying $10+ for a book that hadn't been on my TBR to start with. The whole main room is just general fiction, and I love how they had, by popular authors like Kristen Hanna, for example, they had, if you like Kristen Hanna, then you will also like, and then they listed some other authors that you might like if you like Kristen Hanna. And then they did that with quite a few other popular authors, which I love. And I know some bookstores do that, but I feel like every bookstore should do that to help kind of shed some light on lesser authors that you may not be as familiar with. They also had rooms in the back. There were for mysteries and for true crime, for thrillers and sci-fi and fantasy and young adult. And they had, nice, decent sized sections of all of those. And then in the back room, they had Southern fiction, which I didn't actually know was a thing. But anyway, Southern fiction and inspirational fiction / Christian fiction. So I browsed around almost all the sections, and they had a great selection of books and a lot of good books, and you could find some good deals. They did have like a clearance dollar cart, and they had some books that were marked down. I did find a book there. I found this, Hang 1,000 Trees with Ribbons by Anne Rinaldi. I've talked about Anne Rinaldi recently. She was a young adult author, popular in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, and she wrote mostly about American history, but for young adults. This is one of her longer books, one of her thicker books, and it is about Phyllis Wheatley, which, if you remember, if you have been with my channel from that time, when in April when I went to Boston, I saw the grave of her husband, and it made mention of her, and it reminded me, I'd learned about her a long time ago in school. She was a poet, a published poet in the colonial times. She was very successful as a Black woman, although she ended up dying in poverty, unfortunately. Kind of a sad story. I wanted to read more about her, and I want to read her actual poetry, but there wasn't anything in Boston about her. So I found this book in the As a Page Turns bookstore, and it was only like $3. So I got that, Hang 1,000 Trees with Ribbons, and I really want to read that. Taylor, again, recommended Mr. K's bookstore. It's her favorite bookstore in Greenville, and it reminds me a lot of McKay's, which we have in our area, and it's huge, massive used bookstore, and they may have some new books there also, but it was mostly used books, and not just books. They have other kinds of media there as well, so DVDs, CDs, even older video games, and also I think probably some other things like puzzles and stuff, that sort of thing. Huge bookstore. You can definitely spend a long time there browsing for what you're looking for. And, you know, towards the front, they had a lot of like latest releases that they had copies of, which again, some of them may have been new that they were selling, but also used. Fantastic, huge used bookstore. I ended up not purchasing anything there, but they definitely had a huge variety of every category, every genre. And then this was new to me. So there was a Goodwill like clearance store. Taylor said they called it the Big Dig, where they basically have like these bins of stuff, and it's, you know, priced per pound. Textiles are like one price per pound, and just pay by the pound, and you dig through the bins and find what you want. What made me interested in it was they had just opened, like literally in the past week, they had just opened adjacent to that. Goodwill had opened what they called second story books, and that is books, just books. So I always check out the book section at a thrift store. So I was thrilled to see like a whole actual storefront dedicated to their book section. And they had it nicely organized, and it looked like a, you know, an actual bookstore. It wasn't dumpy. It wasn't dirty. Everything was categorized, and they didn't have a huge selection. It's like going to a thrift store, you know, like what you get is what you get. It's just stuff that's been donated. It's not even like a used bookstore where it's carefully curated or whatever. It's like people donate it and they put it on the shelf. So, you know, you get what you get. It's a bit of a hunt there, but I enjoyed the experience. I would love to have one in our area, but I didn't find anything there that I wanted to buy. The last bookstore that we went to on our last day was called Fiction Addiction, and I loved that store. That's probably the only new bookstore I've ever been in that I actually really I loved that it was small and it was focused on fiction, and it was focused on mostly recent fiction, which I don't read a lot of current secular fiction, but still there were a lot of books in there that are on my mental radar as far as wanting to read, or are on my actual TBR, or are authors that I want to try, or authors that I have tried that I've loved their books. So I loved that. And it obviously, whoever runs the bookstore carefully curates the selection there to be books that people actually want to buy. Like it's not just shelves and shelves and shelves of endless books that you have to dig through to find what you're looking for. These are, you know, the things people are wanting to read right now, but across a wide variety of genres and authors, etc. So it's not just, you know, catering to one particular type. And I also loved that they had so many signed copies. It was amazing, by all kinds of authors, famous and otherwise, well known and not. And I loved it. I was like, man, if I lived in this area and there was a particular newish book that I was wanting, I would definitely come here and get it for sure. So I loved it. They had so many signed copies. I also love that they really highlighted local authors and or locally set stories, like regional stories of South Carolina, which I wish, you know, I always go to bookstores when I am on vacation, and some areas are much more successful at this than others. There was definitely more pride of place, if you will, in South Carolina than in some other places, ironically. But there, I guess there is a lot to draw from. Like if they consider it Southern fiction, it doesn't necessarily have to be specifically regional to actual South Carolina. Anyways, there were every bookstore that I went in, except for like the Goodwill one, they had specific sections of you know, local regional literature or Southern fiction, etc. And I really loved that. But this one in particular was highlighting in several different areas specific authors from the area with signed copies of their books and advertising them, giving like reviews of them or whatever, so that people would try the local authors, especially the ones who are not as well known. And I just really love that about it. And I bought a book there. I got this Only the Beautiful by Susan Meissner, which is a signed copy. Like I said, they had so many signed copies. I'm a little hit or miss with Susan Meissner, to be honest. I don't always like how she handles the issues, but she is an excellent author. I like what she writes, and she has a little signature, all the best, Susan Meissner. So I love that. And I wasn't really familiar with this one by her, but I read the back and it sounded like something that I would really enjoy. It's a dual timeline, but it's about the same basic story, 1938 and 1947. And in California, 1938, when she loses her parents in an accident, 16-year-old Roseanne is taken in by the owners of the vineyard where she's lived her whole life as the vine dresser's daughter. She moves into Celine and Truman Calvert's spacious house with a secret, however. Rosie sees colors when she hears sound. She promised her mother she'd never reveal her little understood ability to anyone, but the weight of her isolation and grief proves too much for her. Driven by her loneliness, she not only breaks the vow to her mother, but in a desperate moment lets down her guard and ends up pregnant. Banished by the Calverts, Roseanne believes she is bound for a home for unwed mothers. She soon finds out that she is not going to a home of any kind, but to a place that seeks to forcibly take her baby and the chance for any future babies from her. And then Europe, 1947. After witnessing firsthand Adolf Hitler's brutal pursuit of hereditary purity, especially with regard to different children, Helen Calvert, Truman's sister, is ready to return to America for good. But when she arrives at her brother's peaceful vineyard after decades working abroad, she is shocked to learn what really happened 9 years earlier to the vine dresser's daughter, a girl whom Helen had long ago befriended. In her determination to find Roseanne, Helen discovers a shocking American eugenics program and learns that while the war was won in Europe, there are still battles to be fought at home. So a lot of people don't realize to the extent that eugenics was a popular concept at the turn of the 20th century and how it pervades still today in different forms, even though most of us are horrified. But the concept of it, the tentacles are long-reaching and are still there. So anyway, this is an interesting concept and story idea. I'm very interested in reading it. So I had like 3 books that I was interested in there that I wanted to get. But in the end, I picked that one, Only the Beautiful by Susan Meissner. And I saved the best for last. So I was so excited when I went to Greenville that it worked out for me to meet up with Taylor, known to many of you as Tay Tay, on Tales and Treats with Tay. I love meeting my Booktube besties in real life. It was so fun to meet her in person, one-on-one, and to spend an hour or so just chatting about each other's lives, about each other's families, about real life, but also books. We met at a store called the Judson Booksellers in downtown Greenville, which is in an old courthouse building. The building itself is just very aesthetically pleasing. I loved how they had the counter where you purchase the books was all like built with, where some people might have wood or bricks, they had books, like, so you could see the spines of the books that were used to create the counter. And they had a lovely little coffee shop there where I mentioned that I bought the Midnight Garden iced latte that was really good. And they had also had shelves of regional authors and Southern authors, but then they also had just very attractive displays of all kinds of current books as well as some classics. They did not have any like inspirational Christian fiction section, and I did not see any Christian fiction authors. And probably it's not a store where I would buy something except if I were looking for a gift for someone, because it was all like, in that sense, it was just like your typical bookstore. But they also had some fun like tchotchkes and book related items that you could purchase, stickers and stuff. And they had, some local souvenirs and that kind of thing. And it was just a fun atmosphere in the old courthouse building and a great aesthetic there that was very enjoyable. They had some tables in the lobby area where we could sit and chat for a long time. And it was so fun to just to meet Taylor in person and to be able to chat for so long. And we just have very, very similar perspectives and thoughts on life in general. And so it was just fun to talk with her. We walked through the bookstore and we're like, you know, doing what readers would do. Hey, have you read this one? Do you like this one? Oh, I thought this book was really good. Or, oh, I didn't like this one as much. And just going through and talking about books. Oh, look at this gorgeous edition of Secret Garden or whatever. And then Taylor was so sweet. She gave me a lovely little gift that I'm going to show you. First of all, she wrapped it so beautifully. You can see. And she had tucked in stickers there. And I took them out of there so that I didn't lose them. She gave me a whole bunch of stickers for my reading journal. All these flower ones. Are they so pretty? I love it. I might use these in my planning journal also, because I think they would go really well with that. Sorry, I feel like these are kind of like fuzzy. But these birds. Why aren't you focusing? Anyways, and then this bookmark. So pretty. She also gave me a vintage copy of Anne of Ingleside, because she knows that I am working through the Anne of Green Gables series, and this is the next one in this series that I'm going to read. Well, first, after I read Anne's House of Dreams, which is on my TBR for this month, if I get to it. And then this one will be next up, Anne of Ingleside. And so I love this vintage copy. Look at the drawing on the front. And then this is what the hardcover looks like under the dust jacket. I love this. I love vintage copies of books. So that was and I love Anne, obviously. So this was the perfect gift. So thank you, Taylor. And I'm so glad that the timing worked out for us to meet. Thank you for taking the time to drive into Greenville and meet with me. I hope you enjoyed coming to Greenville with me and the trip that we had and all of the fun places that we went to. I never know what people are interested in Greenville, but at the same time, I know I also look on YouTube and other places online for travel tips and suggestions of places to go and things to do, especially coffee shops and restaurants and bookstores and the like. So that's one reason why I'm putting this out here, not necessarily just for those of you who regularly watch and follow my channel, although I am so happy you're here, of course, but just in case anybody else is looking for those sorts of things to do in the area. I just wanted to share those things that we found, that we enjoyed, and we had a great time with. So I hope you enjoyed this little trip to Greenville, and I will see you next time. Bye.